was fighting inside myself to try to keep this book at the status that it has always been in my home. The inerrant Word of God. This is how I was taught. Inerrant Word of God. Word of God without error. I left Christianity altogether. I decided that I knew God existed. For that was for sure. I could look around me and tell God existed. That was a no-brainer. I knew God existed. I knew he had a purpose for my life. I knew that there were prophets. I knew all of these people were not remembered so well in history and they did nothing. So I knew there was something behind all of this. I just wanted to find it. So I started studying every religion I could find. I knew that God's true religion would be balanced, for sure. Because life is balanced. In order for life to exist in harmony, it must be balanced. And in every one of them, I would see glimpses of the truth. I would see glimpses. And I don't want to discredit Islam. I don't want to discredit Islam because I went to the public library and pulled out a book on Islam. And this book said that Muslims worship a moon god and they bow their heads 5 times a day to a box in the desert. And they can have as many women as they want, and they're all Arab and things of this nature. And what else did it say? That they can kill non-Muslims anytime, any place, in any way they wish without scrutiny. And that they would get 70 virgins in heaven and all this other stuff. So needless to say, I made it about 4 chapters in the book. I put the book back. Thank you very much. I took a one of the big fat magic markers and erased Islam off and said, I'm moving on. And I said to myself that if I convert to any other religion, Islam would not be the one, for sure. Thank you very much. I'm done with that one. And so being 17 years old and having been searching for the truth for about a year and a half, 2 good years, about a year and a half, I'll give it good credit, about a year and a half, really hard searching, I became very frustrated. I became very angry at a sense that, I'm looking for you and you're not doing any effort here. That was my prayer. I'm looking for you and I'm not seeing any reverse effort on this end, I felt as though I was in a room with all the lights off. And every doorway, there was about 50,000 doors in the room, and I knew one of them took me out of here, but the lights were off, and the only way I was going to know is be able to read the signs on the door, And I was trying to feel my way through this foolishness to find the right door. And I really got frustrated, And I'm asking God, why don't you just turn on the light for me, please? Just let me out of this foolishness. And I'm a perfectionist at heart. Anything I do, I want to be the best at it. If I was a Christian, I wanted to be the best. If I wanted to be a Bible scholar, I was determined to be the best. So when I decided to get into the street life, for sure no one was going to outdo me. So I went from one way to extremely the other way really quick. I was getting into trouble, getting kicked out of school. I got expelled. I had to go to night school. I was getting arrested. All these things were happening to me at the age of 17. And my grandmother she was bewildered at all of this. She had no idea what had happened to me. There was 2 incidents that changed all of that. The first incident, I got into a car accident. We were on our way back from Clemson from a party. And it just so happened that night that we were really tired. And I never wore my seatbelt. That was just something I didn't do. And that night I just happened to tell my friend, we're tired. I'm going to sleep. I don't know if you're going to go to sleep, so let's put our seatbelt on. If we run off into the ravine, at least we have our seatbelts on. So we did that, and we did run off into the ravine. Needless to say, we flipped the car about 6.5, 7 times. They say, like who's counting? It was flipped quite a bit of times. And at the end, one half of the car, the back end of the car was on one side of the street, and the other half on the other. The car broke completely in half. And I was awoken by the accident. So I got out of the car, and I pulled my friend out, and he had 2 broken ankles. Not really broken ankles. He had a broken leg and a broken ankle. And I had a piece of glass sticking out of my arm, which I still have a scar to prove it. And it just so happened, at that time, there was a police officer traveling the other way. He saw the accident, turned around, came back. The officer pulled over, got out of the car. I guess he didn't notice that there was not another car parked on the side of the road, but he got out and he asked me, he said, did you see the accident? He came up to me, he said, did you see the accident? Did you see what happened? Do you know where the people? And I looked at him, and I said, I was in the accident, that's my friend's car. And when I said that, it was almost, how they, people talk about, seeing the blood drain out of somebody's face. I saw blood drain out. I saw him go from regular color to white. And he looked at me, and he said that after seeing that wreck, because he saw the whole wreck, it happened in front of him, coming towards him, and it went across the road in front of him. He said, I've already called the coroner just in case. He said, these are wrecks when we come to, we immediately call the coroner just in case. Because these people don't live through that type of wreck. You know, he said, do you see this? One part of the car? I said, yeah, I see it. I was in it. And he looked at me, and he must have been a very religious man, because he looked at me. He said, before you go to the hospital, I want you to remember this. He said, I want you to remember that God is real and that you're here for a reason. He said, you're here for a reason, and you better realize what that reason is. He said, I don't know it, but you better figure it out. Because God doesn't keep people around like this unless they have a purpose later on in life. So he said, you have a reason. You need to figure it out. Needless to say, that wasn't the only thing that woke me up, because I continued on doing what I was doing. About a month after that, I traveled to New York with a friend of mine, and I'm drawing quite close to the end of my story, I hope. I traveled to New York with a friend of mine, and I left the hotel room, happened to be the same friend, and two other friends. I left the hotel room to go to the ATM. So I went in, and I withdrew my little $60, and as I was walking out, a guy came in behind me, and apparently, he was so in need of this money, he was so strung out or whatever on drugs, and that he was not willing to take the chance of me not giving him that money. Because he pulled the gun, pointed it in my face, and pulled the trigger. He didn't say a word. He didn't ask anything. He didn't say anything. And then I remember his eyes getting big, because nothing happened. Nothing happened. I don't know if there was not a bullet, or if he was so drugged up that he didn't know the gun was not loaded, or there was a bad bullet. But after that, he started trying to pull the trigger again. And before he even had a chance to do that, I had, because of my martial arts experience, alhamdulillah, thanks to God, so immediately I bum rushed him and smashed him against the glass. You know, I cracked all the glass that was at the door and shoved him through the door, you know, and ran. You know, I ran back to the hotel room. But needless to say, I went back to the hotel room and started thinking to myself that, you know, that I got to get it together. You know, this is crazy. I got to get it together. So I went back home, and I sat down and told my grandmother what happened. And she looked at me, and, you know, she told me, she said, the police officer was right when he told you, you know, that you have a purpose. And she said, she told me that this is God's mercy to you. That he's sending these events in your life to make you realize that he loves you. He says, because if he didn't love you, he'll let you die. But he wants you to know him. And he's allowing your life to be extended as a mercy till you know him. So she said, go look for him. So I went and renewed my search for God, needless to say. And I used to pray every day, many times a day, bowing and prostrating on the floor, because this is how the Bible taught. This is how the Bible taught. The prophets prayed. And then one day I was having a debate about religion with a friend of mine. And a mutual friend of ours, whom we knew through his business, happened to show up at that time and, you know, told me that he was Muslim. At that point, he just decided to reveal that he was Muslim and asked me to come to Juma, because I was not able to realize that he was a Muslim and a part-time drug dealer. Those two things from the book I read, I didn't think that was part of the job description. So, and he was African American, and I thought Muslims were Arab. And he said, you need to come to Juma. He was like, I'm not a good enough Muslim to tell you about Islam, you know, because I don't live it, apparently. And he said, but if you come to the mosque, there'll be people there who can help you. You know, so I said, okay. I said, what is Juma? He said, it's Friday service, just like church on Sunday. There's just no chairs. I said, no problem. So I hyped myself up to go to this Juma, because all I knew about Muslims was this thing I read in the book. So number one, I was very scared to see that there were not many windows in the mosque. That was the first thing that scared me. The second thing that scared me was, and this might be shocking to you, that I lived across the street from this mosque all my life. When they told me where the mosque was, it was next door to the church that I used to go to learn how to become a missionary. And you could touch the two buildings.